And if we did, then I'd have to Okay. I submit the reconsideration. Vote one. Vote. See.
All right. Okay, Commissioner Williams is in another meeting, so I'll be acting as chair today. Lucky you guys. Commissioner Corn and Commissioner Domke are present. We have a quorum. It is 1:31. I'm calling this meeting to order. Does anybody need any assistance with this meeting? Seeing none, I will go ahead and turn it over to, well, not Jake, but what do we got first on the docket?
Conflict of interest.
Oh, is there a conflict of interest with anyone?
Commissioner Domke has none.
I have none.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners. So I have some, excuse me, Alex Fan, planning staff. I have some late comments from some agencies for all of these files, and I have one late comment from the public, and it's up to you if you would like to enter them into the record at this time.
If they're late, then I don't believe they should be accepted.
Yeah.
Our ordinance says that it's up to the chair to admit those to the record.
So they're literally late. Is there a cutoff date?
Yep.
Then I don't think we should accept them.
Okay, thank you. I will get started. All right, so the first file today is zone change. Zone change file ZC 0010-24, a proposal from rural 10 to rural 5. The applicants are requesting a zone change from rural 10 to rural 5 on one parcel, approximately 21.2 acres in size. The project is located off Upper Rocky Road in Section 18, Township 56 North, Range 1 West, Boise Meridian. This parcel has a comprehensive plan designation of rural residential, and this request was evaluated against the standards for rural 10 and rural 5. On the right-hand side of the screen is the applicant's site plan showing the parcel in the bolded black on the northwest corner. These are the standards at which this application was reviewed against. The current use of this parcel is residential. It's unplatted. It's approximately 21.2 acres. Has a zoning designation of rural 10 and land use designation of rural residential. The parcel is accessed from Upper Rocky Road, a Bonner County owned and privately maintained public right-of-way, which is accessed via Rocky Road, a Bonner County owned and privately maintained public right-of-way, which is accessed via Sagal Road, a Bonner County owned and maintained public right-of-way. Just on the right-hand side of the screen shows the parcel highlighted in blue, and the arrows are pointing to the different roadways. So the site does contain slopes between 0 and 30% or greater. The site does contain mapped wetlands. It does contain frontage to an intermittent stream. It is located within Special Flood Hazard Area X. It is served by an individual well, individual septic system, Sagal Fire District, Vista Utilities, and Lake Pondere School District number 84. The graphic on the right-hand side of the screen shows the LiDAR slope layer from the GIS map. Anything that has no color is 0 to 15%, yellow is 15 to 29%, and red is 30% or greater. There are two soil types on this property, Duford silt loam and Pondere silt loam, both of which are classified as not prime farmland. A full list of the agencies noticed of this file is attached in Appendix A of the staff report. We received comments from Bonner County Road and Bridge and Panhandle Health District, and we received no comment replies from ITD, Fish and Game, Department of Environmental Quality, and Kootenai Pend Oreille Sewer District. All the other agencies that were routed did not respond. We have received public comments as of the date of the stat report. The criteria for Rural 10, R10 in areas designated as rural residential in the comprehensive plan that meet one or more of the following criteria: characterized by slopes that are steeper than 30%, located within critical wildlife habitat as identified by federal, state, and local agencies, contain prime agricultural soils, served by a network of public and or private roads that generally do not meet applicable roadway standards set forth in Title II of this code or Appendix A of this title or are absent, whether the parcel is located within a floodway or contains limited access to public services. Rural 5 is R5 in areas designated as rural residential in the comprehensive plan that are already developed at or near the one dwelling unit per 5 acre density and or do not meet the criteria for Rural 10. And this is just a quick overview of the two zoning designations once again. We'll get into the analysis for Rural 10, whether the parcel is characterized by slopes steeper than 30%. The parcel does contain slopes steeper than 30%. The parcel has mostly areas of 0 to 29.9% grade, approximately 13 acres of the parcel, and contains 8.2 acres of slopes that are approximately 30% or steeper. According to the land use portion of the comprehensive plan for density ranges, properties that are level to moderately sloped are appropriately sized to be 5 to 10 acres. Whether the property is located within critical wildlife habitat, no critical wildlife habitat was determined by any agencies. Contains prime agricultural soils. So the parcel contains, it should be 2 types of soils, not 3, Duford silt loam and Pend Oreille silt loam. According to the natural resources component of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan, Duford silt loam and Pend Oreille silt loam are considered not prime farmland. Not prime farmland is considered as all other soil types not classified as prime farmland or farmland of statewide importance are classified as not prime farmland. Per the natural resources component of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan, the rural residential land use designation and the rural zoning district encourages agricultural pursuits, and agricultural pursuits are still viable with not prime farmland soils, but the types of crops may be limited. Served by a network of public and or private roadways that generally do not meet applicable roadway standards. Access to the parcel is by way of Bonner County-owned public right-of-ways, Upper Rocky Road, which is privately maintained, and Sagal Road, which is publicly maintained. Bonner County Road and Bridge stated that there were no objections to the zone change as Sagal Road is constructed to withstand heavy traffic. There's no comment by Road and Bridge on the construction of Upper Rocky Road. The risk of flooding of this parcel is nominal as there is no mapped floodplain and no floodway. The parcel has access to public services. Public services that are available for these properties include fire protection, emergency services, and power. Other amenities are a private well and individual septic. Developed at, this is for the Rural 5 designation, developed at or near the one dwelling unit per 5 acres. Within 1,200 feet of the subject parcel, there are 32 individual parcels or lots. It appears most surrounding properties in the immediate area are developed at 5 or more acres. There are 21 parcels or lots within 1,200 feet of this project that are developed with one dwelling unit per 5 acres or below 10 acres. The closest Rural 5 zoning district area borders the property on the east and west sides. The graphic on the right-hand side shows the perimeter. The project on the east side was just recently designated as Rural 5, and the areas to the west have been designated as Rural 5 since 2008.
Hey, Alex?
Yes.
Which one just got designated R5?
The parcel on the east side here, so that larger parcel, if
Okay.
my cursor will work.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, this one here.
Yep.
Does not meet the criteria for rural 10. The property does not appear to be characterized by steep slopes of 30% or greater. It does not have any identified critical wildlife habitat. It is not within a floodway. It does have access to public services and does not contain soils classified as prime farmland. It does not meet the served by a network of public and or private roadways that generally do not meet the applicable roadway standards criteria for rural 10, as it is served by Sagal Road, a Bonner County owned and maintained public right-of-way, and Upper Rocky Road, a Bonner County owned and privately maintained road. However, no information has been provided to the planning department as to whether Upper Rocky Road does or does not meet the criteria for Title II public road standards. At the October 17th, 2024 zoning commission hearing, the zoning commission recommended approval in a 3-0 vote. That concludes my presentation. I can answer any questions if you have any for me.
Go ahead.
I don't believe I have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
Yep.
Good afternoon. Dan Provolt, project representative. I've got a couple of exhibits here, just for better observation than what we saw. You did see the zoning, current zoning on there. We are the dark blue right there in the middle, surrounded by a sea of R5. And like staff said, the one on the east there was just recently approved. So a lot of that slope you see up there sweeps right through there. The R5 on the west side over there, you can see all the developed lots in there. And so we went ahead and created a layout
If I
of
could
that.
stop you for just a second, maybe just speak into a mic so that we can pick up the audio.
Is that better? Okay, so this one shows the green is our subject property. The red is existing roads, runs right up the west side of the property and extending back into the north. Although the north pieces up there are in the Ag Forest 10. They're still being developed or were developed prior to that. I don't know the history, but we've got 5s. Every one of those are 5-acre pieces, as noted. And so we have a lot of 5s off to the west and 5s to the south, 5-acre zoning on 3 sides. So we're kind of an island out there. And even the small piece to the south there, that existing 5 is in the R10 or rural 5 and 10. But it does also zoned at 10. So kind of inappropriate, but there we are in the middle. So again here, we took a picture off of Google Earth and did a skew on the camera. It doesn't show up real well, but you can kind of get the idea, if you can twist your eyes just right, how that lays in there. It's not quite as steep as it looks. There's a little bit of steep going through the middle. There's somewhat of a drainage. There's a road that runs down it. There's not much drainage. It's just a kind of a road base in the natural contours of the land. You can see the existing home and shop to the south. Fairly flat in there, actually. We took some pictures up on site. And you can see that the slopes aren't near as bad as they are portrayed with the red and yellow contours. Not really contours, but they do show the slopes.
Did you tilt the camera with the slope when you took it?
We tried our best to make it look flat as possible.
I will say I appreciate, but it's very difficult to perceive slopes from a photograph like this.
Yeah, it is.
I know from personal experience, it's not a very accurate method of trying to determine a slope.
The best way is to look at the trees. They are vertical. can't twist those to too much. But anyway, there's a lot of flat area, usable area up in there, and that's why they would have went ahead and just allowed for the zone change off to the east there. That's a fresh one. I guess I'll take it with me.
Thank you.
So the staff ran through the differences between the R5 and the R10 and the criteria for both, and it does admittedly fit the R5 criteria better. It's not that remote. It has public road up the west side. It has all existing 5-acre pieces wrapped around it. And again, the currently granted R5 zoning to the east. So just noting what we have in there for what our immediate surrounding uses are. It fits the neighborhood. It fits what's already there. Does not have prime soil. It's not within the city impact areas. You have any questions that I can answer?
The main item for me at this point really is just trying to ascertain the slopes question, topographic question. Obviously, we have the LiDAR mapping in the USGS topographic map. Do you guys have more accurate or current topographic mapping that would suggest that these maps are not accurate? Because I can't ascertain that from these photographs.
We don't have new topo. Basically, those things are taken off of 40-foot contours, so it's very generalized. It doesn't seek out the areas that aren't that sloping, you know. So you have an area up in there that it is certainly sloped, but it kind of screams at you on the map, and it's not. We went up there and hiked half a mile off to the east and walked across this thing. So I guess when I look at those photographs, it shows me what I've already walked on. And, you know, it's like soils maps are general. This kind of LiDAR it's generalized because it's based on some large areas of difference. If we could get a topo in there, say 5-foot contours, you would really be able to see the difference.
Yeah, understood. And that's the challenge for me is I don't have other objective information to rely on other than this mapping.
Well, if we look too at the recently large area up there, if you're looking at your map, you're still looking at a huge area that was just granted R5 zoning, and it was all reviewed for the same thing.
And understood.
I mean, yeah.
I may not have made the same decision, however, so
Sure.
does not necessarily apply, but
And I see that a
appreciate
lot
that
of
understanding.
I'm looking at Chapter 6 on the comp plan, and it said that slopes are factored into the future land use analysis areas for steeper slopes than 30%, because it's recognized as poor areas for residential development because of the need for excess road building. And we have a road that runs all the way up, and it's running straight, so you don't run a straight road up a steep slope like that. Nobody gets up there. You don't have developments to the north. What you have is a nice straight road. You've got a percent, you're probably looking at a 5 to, I would say maybe 12 or 13% slope up that straight line, and it's not that steep of a road. I mean, you can drive in and out. We drove all the way up in there, and as soon as you reach the I would call it the top of the hill, at the northwest corner of the subject property, it turns right and it runs flat. Runs back into those newer homes back in there. So I can certainly tell you what I saw.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
It's not that our 20-acre piece there is been picked out to be left alone in the R5, C of R5. It's just the last one to change, to fit into what's surrounding them in the neighborhood there.
It doesn't look much different than the rest of the area on that LiDAR picture.
Yeah. We thought it might also be important to see what our next step is. Although we would be looking for R5 zone, there isn't anything between an R10 and an R5. So we went ahead and drew up what our plan is, and this has been, of course, laid out and approved by the landowner. Rather than trying to squeeze in 4 lots, we're going to be doing 3 lots at about 7 acres apiece. That's how the land fits. The dash line conforms to the lot, between lot 2 and lot 3 proposed. That's where the, I would call it a drainage only because the map calls it such, but it's actually this area here that breaks through the trees. It doesn't turn and start heading down the hill. This is fairly flat, maybe has a slope of 4% or so through here, and then it turns and heads down through the gully that doesn't show up very well, but a little bit of water shows up down here just as a matter of a collection, but it's not really a drainage. I mean, the road runs down through there. We went all the way down in with the vehicle. It's not a problem. It's flat across the top. Hard to say. This is fairly flat up on top. Lot 2 would have flat along the top side and along the lower parts of the east side. There's you can see the red in your LiDAR. Yeah, or take out, you can see that where the slopes down toward the drainage.
That gully there.
Yep, and that's just your typical roll in the hill. Or, you know, fairly short distance. But we have fairly flat up in here. They showed a little bit of flat, but you've got flat all the way along in here. A lot of flat in here that didn't show up real well. And yellow is 15 to 30. And the clear is 0 to 15. So there's a lot of 0 to 15 even on this map here. There are home sites down at the bottom end in there.
So it sounds like the way you got it drawn out there, you're going to kind of follow this low area here with the property line.
Correct.
And then it's going to come straight down here, it looks like, and shoot across something like that.
Yeah, it's going to end. The road that's there, it's more of just an access to get to the back of your property. Comes in behind the existing homes here, but I don't believe they're going to use that for a drive-through. This is all flat pasture land. They've got some animals running there. It's fenced off. And this is all flat up here. This is going to be lot 1 up here on top, fairly flat. The road comes up and turns to the east.
Right.
Yeah, it runs at about a 45-degree angle. off that
Northeast in
corner.
there. Yeah, and that is fairly flat. It runs a little bit higher here, and then it runs fairly flat, and it has a nice view site out here for that guy.
Okay.
And I will say, I much prefer, given the lay of the land and the conditions, as you were saying, the concept of 7-acre lot sizes in general. Of course, if we make this decision, they're not bound to that. They can choose to
Sure.
go with the 5 acres. So, so that doesn't necessitate the 7-acre lot size going forward. I agree with that concept being a better solution than a 5-acre lot size trying to be force fit into the parcel. But it's not a contingent requirement. So.
Right. It just, if that is what they're trying to do, they just can't do it zoned in R10.
Right. But if it changes to R5, then they can still choose to
Absolutely.
do a minor land division or some other process to create 5-acre lots. If they choose to do that instead, they're not bound to the 7 proposal,
Yep.
just to clarify.
Sure. And we actually thought about including this or following, to get it submitted. That's why we're to this point here, was to get it submitted. That
Sure.
you kind of put the cart in front of the horse if you submit it at the time or before the zone changes. So, it's for the family. They've got it laid out. This fits the kids, and that's what their plan is.
Okay.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate the
And
information.
just to clarify, Brian,
Yeah.
if they did change their mind and want to go to 4 or 5s, that would have to be approved. Just by changing the zone doesn't necessarily make it, doesn't allow them to put 4 or 5s there. It gives them the ability to, but it would still have to be approved when they get to that step.
Separate land application.
So at that point in time, if they
Application.
went to 4 or 5s, that could be denied.
Yes, technically. Agreed. That's a pot, yes, process, different process, absolutely.
Yep.
I don't have any other, sorry, I was just gonna
Well, I
say,
was just gonna have another say on these. We're good.
Yep.
I don't have any other questions for the applicant's representative.
Okay. Does that conclude your presentation, Dan?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you. Is there a rebuttal?
You do public comment and rebuttal.
I was going to do that. Is there a public comment? Does it start with pros and or,
Yeah, just call.
Okay.
Pro neutral.
okay, so is there public comment for this action? Mr. Linscott?
If I can, I might pull this over here because I got some.
Absolutely.
I have here, Matt Linscott, Bonner County resident. Whenever I see these zone changes come up, I've known Pete and Linda for all my life. And I know when they bought that 20-acre piece, so I was curious. So I went back and I've actually found the deed. So they bought that piece back in 1985 from the Crabs. And at that time, that property was zoned rural 5. We didn't have a rural 10-acre zone until 2008. See if I have my map here on that. I thought I had this straight down here. Here's the map right here in my hand. And so this was adopted, this map was adopted in 1992. They purchased it in 1985, it was zoned for 5s when they purchased it. Here's part of ordinance number 186 that shows that in the rural district, we only had a 5-acre minimum. We didn't have a rural 10 back when we purchased the property. When they gone ahead and created that public access road through there, that was actually created through Emerald Valley Estates. And that was actually created in July of 1965. And on that, it created a 50-foot wide right-of-way, and it says right on the face of the plat, it is further certified that all roads shall herein be dedicated to the public, and that all owners and lots of this plat shall conform to certain covenants recorded in instrument number on file at the office of the Bonner County Recorder. And it was signed by, it was Chairman Brockway. I don't know if you guys know Brockway or not. He was county chairman back at that time. All those plats created, and you can kind of see on the map, all the parcels to the west in Emerald Valley 1 and Emerald Valley 2, those were all created in that 5-acre density. The parcels to the north, which is actually part of Peck Estates, and I have a plat on those as well. I don't remember what year, can't read the note on that when that was adopted. But those are all created, all the parcels that border this parcel are all 5-acre parcels as well. There we go right there. It's 19, Peck Estates was adopted in 1983. So, I take that back. It was adopted in 96. 1996 when that was adopted. So I think we have the access issue, straight there, and it's completely surrounded as the applicant representative pointed out. Even the one parcel that's still zoned rural 10 to the south is a 5-acre piece.
Right.
It's the this is the last parcel in an island up there. There was concerns about slopes. Warner County adopted not too long ago what we refer to as a geotechnical analysis ordinance. We've done that for the health and safety of the public. So if someone wants to build on a 30% slope, you can do that. And what it says is that geotechnical analysis shall be required for slopes where natural slopes are equal or exceeds 30%, or where slopes are highly erodible, slumps, seep, or other geological features. It has to have a geological stamp by an Idaho licensed civil engineer in order to go ahead and get a building permit. So you still can build on those. Matter of fact, is because of this ordinance that we adopted, many of the sub-area plans for our comprehensive plan and our proposals that we're getting rid of slopes as a determining factor. That check and balance is in place for public health and safety. It's gone. Some people like to build on slopes because that gives them a better view. Depends where, perhaps not this one because it's in the middle of the property, but allows those people to go ahead and build in it as long as that check and balance is in place for this health and safety with that stamp on it. I can't think of anything else to say. Oh, we have that list to determine whether it's an R10 or R5, but if you read that last sentence for an R5, there's two things. If it does not meet the criteria for the R10, or it has that and or in there, it doesn't matter whether it has the whole thing is sloped 30% or not. If everything around it is zoned for 5s, it needs to be zoned 5. We have to remember, we have to apply equal application of the laws for their due process. And if something like this was denied, I think they'd have a pretty good claim on that. Does anybody have any questions for me?
I'm not up as far as I should be as far as terminology like spot zoning. But I think this would be a good reference where that thing's sitting out there by itself. It looks like it was spot zoned.
Yes, I mean, if it was denied, I
Right.
think they definitely would have that, could have that claim. Of course, I'm not an attorney, but I totally agree. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Are there any other public comment for this application? Are there any public comment neutral on this application? Seeing none, are there any negative comments on this application? Seeing none, is there a rebuttal now? Yes. Do we have a rebuttal?
I'm good unless you have any final questions.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
I don't.
Jake?
I'd love to explain spot zoning.
Okay, thank you. It's always a term that comes up.
Yeah, it's a Jacob L. Planning Director. So spot zoning is like a buzzword people use oftentimes when two colors look different on the map, right? Look, this is all blue and this one's going to be green, and that's a spot zone. So if you look at the Idaho Land Use Handbook, which is put on by a group of attorneys down in Boise, and they update it periodically, at least usually once a year or so. There's a whole section that explains what spot zoning is as a legal definition for Idaho based on court and case law. So you have two instances where a spot zone is going to happen. One is when you approve a zone on a property that doesn't align with the comprehensive plan. So you could state it outright that this isn't in line with the comp plan land use designations or the comprehensive plan in general as the policies of the plan, okay? So if the board fails to make a finding that it's in alignment with the comprehensive plan, that zone is essentially a spot zone when it gets changed. That's an easy scenario. The other one would be is if the board approves a use on a property that isn't in conformance with the zone and the uses provided in that zone. For example, if you have someone comes in and applies for a sawmill in the suburban zone, and the board determines, hey, that seems like an appropriate use there, it's not in the use table, and you approve that as a conditional use permit or something of the sort, that's a spot zone for that use that doesn't conform with the use table. So those are the only two instances. It's just because two colors are next to each other and they're different, or if one's surrounded by, like, I would just advise you try not to use the buzzwords because you'll hear it from the people all the time, but those are the two case laws. And I can send you that land use handbook. I have it marked up with some highlights on it. That's one that I try to bring up whenever I hear the board start reiterating the spot zone terminology. So that's all I have. And if you want to let Mr. Provolt rebut that, feel free.
Thanks, Jake.
Well, you should give him an opportunity to discuss.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's fine. That wasn't a slide by any means.
Do you have anything to add to that, Dan?
I don't. That would be a good thing to add in the back of the code for frequently asked questions.
Oh, reference document? It's a good point.
Okay, then we'll open it up for deliberation with the board.
All right. I'm organizing my thoughts if I could have a moment.
Okay.
So, I believe going through what staff has presented and what the applicant's representative has presented, that I agree that the different conditions outlined in the comp plan and then in the zoning district comply with the R5 designation with one exception, and this is the one I'm deliberating on in my own mind at the moment, and this is trying to deal with, for R10, the characterized by slopes steeper than 30%. I'm extremely frustrated by the term characterized because it's not easily defined. I wish and desire in the future that our code will be amended, but that doesn't help us today. But that's a very vague term. It doesn't indicate if it's a majority feature, a minority feature, or how else to determine what that means. But I would say that if we look just at the LiDAR, that the red designation of the greater than 30% slopes are something that I would consider to be a significant or substantial feature. And I was leaning toward indicating that I think it is actually better for R10 because of that. However, listening to the applicant's representative's information based on his on-site observation, it caused me to look closer at the mapping. So I've looked at the LiDAR slopes layer of the GIS map overlaid on the aerial image. And what I'm seeing, and I don't know, Commissioner, if this is easy for you to see, but so I'm just changing the transparency so you can see the base image. The LiDAR is showing significant amount of slopes through these areas that already have structures and other improvements on them. And looking at the aerial, I don't see anything that's evidence of retaining walls or other mitigations required to deal with steep slopes.
So that tells
Yeah.
me that it probably is just cresting the 30%.
So when I look at that overlay and I look at where the development areas are, I find it reasonable that the on-site observations are probably pretty accurate with the fact that some of these 30% red LiDAR areas are not correct for that particular parcel. And so based on that information, I am hesitant to characterize the property with the 30% or greater slope designation. So I had to go through this process to figure out how to define this term characterized. And then if I was looking at the LiDAR without any other data, I was leaning toward thinking that it is a substantial characteristic of the parcel. However, with the information that was presented and now looking at it from this other perspective of the overlay, I don't see how it's possible with what's been developed here, there not being substantial features to deal with those types of slopes that in fact that overlay on this parcel is accurate. So based on that, that was the only box in my mind that could be checked to say that it would meet the rural 10 standards versus the rural 5.
Right.
And so if in fact then it's not characterized by the greater than 30% slopes, then by looking at the rural 5 standards, I believe it's appropriate for and meets the rural 5 criteria because it does not meet the rural 10. Because in my mind, that was the only characteristic of the property that was in question.
I'd agree. Maybe we could direct planning to use that overlay tool that you're using in the future when they present cases.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's,
Because it doesn't show in the 2D model. I mean, for all we know, that could be a 60% slope there where that dark red is. And in actuality, it's probably a 31%, if that's even correct.
yeah, and it's not always easy to tell, of course, especially if we were looking at raw land. If we were, just timbered, it would be very difficult. But because this particular parcel has development in areas that are shown in red on the LiDAR map, on that layer, it's pretty evident to me, looking at the aerial, that those are not 30% or greater slopes where some of this development has occurred, or we'd see other features on the land that had to deal with those grades and how they were going to cut shelves into those grades and so forth to build on. So I have to believe that the LiDAR layer on this parcel is not very accurate, and that there are not that amount of greater than 30% slopes on the parcel. So I think that's what I was grappling with when I was asking those questions earlier, just trying to figure out what data we could rely on. So,
Well, the more tools, the better.
yes, so in my mind, walking through this, I agree with, when we look at the rural 10 standards, I've reached the point in my thought process where I do not believe the property is characterized by slopes that are steeper than 30%. We have information that there's been no indication that's within a critical wildlife habitat. It does not contain prime agricultural soils. We have appropriate roadways, so
It does have that, but
it does
that's
have
an
that, but
odd
it doesn't, yeah, it
requirement.
doesn't meet all of the standards. And so that's where, when I look at the rural 5, we do have the adjacency of the 5-acre parcels already to create the context, and it does not meet the criteria for R10 based on what was just indicated. So at this point, unless you see something different.
No, that was the only red flag, if you will. I've struggled with this ever since I been here, a couple of months. And the 30% slope is a hard thing to wrap your head around. If a corner of it is red, does that mean characterized is half of it? And so I think it really needs to be taken on a case-by-case basis. And I appreciate you pulling up that tool because that helps a lot. Like I said, we don't know if this is a 60% slope or a 30% slope when it's just two colors there. So I would agree with you.
Yeah, when I first looked at it, because the red, I even blew up, I doubled the size of what we had to get a better look. And because the red is on that LiDAR layer is spread throughout the property, that's where I was thinking, well, maybe it is characterized because it's fairly consistent throughout. But then when we start to zoom in and look at specific areas,
You don't see a house with a big bank going.
Yeah,
down.
I don't see the aerial pictometry representing the fact that it actually is sloped in that way. So, And then that would, and I still say it's somewhat difficult to interpret photographs for slope in that way. But the photographs certainly aren't showing something significant. I won't put a lot of credence in the photographs just because we would need more data to help interpret them. But and I won't rely on Google Earth knowing how they build their mapping. I don't find that to be a.
Could you tell us which tool you were using?
Yeah, so I'm in the Bonner County GIS website, and I'm turning on under the natural resources, the LiDAR slope percent layer.
Yeah.
And then I was simply changing the transparency so that I could, because with what we have just in the staff report, I can't see the base layer to understand how it relates. So by changing to transparency now, I'm looking at areas that the LiDAR layer shows as red as greater than 30%. And beneath those areas of red where there's development on the property already in existence, I'm seeing structures and things that if they were in fact built on a greater than 30% slope, then there would also be evidence of how they've mitigated that slope. And I don't see any evidence of retaining walls, steep embankments, anything else that would show that they had to mitigate a slope of that angle. And so that leads me to put credence in the information that the representative has given us about their on-site observations.
You just kept referencing tool, we want to make sure.
I'm
that
sorry, thank
for the
you.
record,
Thank you
we're using the
I'm
same
sorry that I
information.
wasn't clear
You're fine.
before.
We just want to make sure that you weren't using some
Yes,
outside
no, thank you.
tool when
I'm
evaluating. You're good.
I was needing to interpret the image that staff provided that I couldn't see the layer underneath to better determine if it was accurate. So thank you for asking me to clarify. I want to be sure we have that clear for the record.
And we can always, in our staff report, give you like a more transparent view of that. So sometimes the images, yeah, either way. we can-
Yeah, I mean, looking at something like this in this context, in this public hearing context for the first time, if we have any kind of existing development, I would find it helpful. If, like we were saying before, if it's just a piece of timber and there's nothing that we can, ascertain by looking at the base image, but if there is development and we're trying to evaluate slopes, for me at least, being able to see the base layer imagery is going to help tell me if some of those slopes are accurate.
We have another layer that actually builds boxes around those structures to make it more apparent.
Gotcha. Yeah, that would be great too.
Yeah, we can have that. That's easy.
Yeah, because, for me, I'm trying to make sure that we're considering all the information being presented, but having to filter that just because, we have to determine what we can rely on as strong evidence and proof for making that decision. So I've seen parcels that the LiDAR is pretty accurate and others that it's not. And so it's great to be able to look at a case-by-case basis, as you were saying, Commissioner. But yeah, the only tool I've been using is the 2024 aerial image from the county GIS as the base layer, and then the county's LiDAR overlay.
Anything else, Commissioner?
No, so based on what we just discussed, I also then, for clarity, will say that I agree with the zone change findings of fact that were presented through the staff report. So that I think we can probably curtail having to read that line by line since that was already presented and we've not amended that unless you'd like to amend something.
Nope.
Okay.
I would agree with your findings there and theirs.
The motion that's crafted there gives the staff the ability to go back and listen to your deliberation and add additional findings to the decision letter. So you don't have to state exactly what the finding, like unless you want to strike one altogether, if you find some evidence that, finding number 3 is invalid, you can put that in your motion, but otherwise you don't need to add like finding of fact 10, 11, 12 to state X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
as long as you're deliberating like you did and you're all in agreement as to what the deliberation is, that motion as written, legal added some language in there that allows staff to go in and add findings of fact based on the deliberation.
Great,
If that
thank
helps.
you.
You don't have to read those. The conclusions of law are written in a neutral sense because we're not sure what the decision's going to be. So please read those and make sure that they're, whichever one you find, whichever side of that.
That makes sense. Thank you, Director, that's helpful. So Commissioner, I'm prepared to make a motion unless you'd like to deliberate further.
No, I think we deliberated.
All right. I move to approve this project, file ZC 0010-24, requesting a zone change from rural 10 to rural 5 to the Board of County Commissioners, finding that it is not in conflict with the policies of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan and is in accord with the Bonner County Revised Code as enumerated in the following conclusions of law. Conclusion 1, the proposal is not in conflict with the policies of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan. Conclusion 2, this proposal was reviewed for compliance with Title 12, Bonner County Revised Code, and was found to be in compliance. Conclusion 3, the proposal is in accord with the purpose of the Rural 5 zoning district provided at Chapter 3, Title 12, Bonner County Revised Code. This decision is based upon the evidence submitted at the time the staff report was prepared, the testimony received at this hearing. I further move to adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law as set forth in the staff report or as amended during the hearing, and direct planning staff to draft written findings and conclusions to reflect this motion, have the chairman sign, and transmit to all interested parties. This action does not result in the taking of private property.
I'll step down from the chair and second that. Is there anything else to discuss?
Sir?
Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Donkey?
Yes.
Commissioner Corn?
Yes.
So Commissioners, since there's an approval of the zone change, there's one more to read. It should be right under that. It's for
Yes.
to adopt the ordinance.
I see that, thank you.
The zone changes are a little different. So.
Yeah, I appreciate the clarification. Okay, so based on the approval, I move to approve an ordinance of Bonner County, Idaho, the number to be assigned, citing its authority, providing for the amendment of the official zoning map of Bonner County by the classification of lands located in Section 18, Township 56 North, Range 1 West, Boise Meridian, Bonner County, Idaho, to Rural 5, and providing for an effective date.
I'll step down from the chair and second that. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Donkey?
Yes.
Commissioner Corn?
Yes. I can't see him, Matt.
Did you call for conflicts on this? We haven't opened ZC.
Oh, we do that every.
Yeah, we need to open public hearing and call for conflict.
Okay. Is there any conflict of interest on this file?
Do we need to state which hearing we're
Yeah,
entering into
we need to
first?
Open the hearing for ZC.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and open the hearing on file number ZC 0011-24, zone changes, agricultural forest 20, agricultural forest 10. Are there any conflicts of interest on this file?
Commissioner Domke has none.
Commissioner Corn has none.
Perfect. Thank you, Commissioners. Alex Fain, Planning Staff. Today we're going to hear file ZC 0011-24, a request from Agricultural Forestry 20 to Agricultural Forestry 10. These are the standards at which this application was reviewed against. The applicants are requesting a zone change from Agricultural Forestry 20 to Agricultural Forestry 10 on one parcel approximately 20 acres in size. Project is located off Thimbleberry Lane in Section 26, Township 58 North, Range 1 West, Boise Meridian. Comprehensive plan designation is ag forest land. And this request was evaluated against the standards for both agricultural forestry 20 and agricultural forestry 10. This is an unplatted parcel, approximately 20 acres in size. It currently is zoned agricultural forestry 20. It has a land use designation of ag forest land, which is suitable for 10 or 20 acre parcels. The parcel is accessed from Thimbleberry Lane, a privately owned and maintained road, via Colburn Culver Road, a Bonner County owned and maintained public right of way. The graphic on the right hand side shows the subject parcel in purple. The access road is pointed out as Thimbleberry Lane, and the green road on the west side is Colburn Culver Road. So the site does contain map slopes of 0 to 30% slopes. It does not contain any mapped wetlands. It does not have any frontage to any mapped water bodies, and it is located within Special Flood Hazard Area Zone X. It is served by an individual well, individual septic system. It is served by Northside Fire District. It is power supplied by Vista Utilities, and it is located within the service area of Lake Pond Area School District number 84. Again, the graphic on the right-hand side shows the LiDAR slope layer. Any of the areas that are clear are 0 to 15%. Areas highlighted in yellow are 15 to 30%. And areas highlighted in red are 30% or greater. There are 4 types of soil on this property. The first soil, I've read this soil about 30 times and I can never figure out how to pronounce it, so I'm going to call it H and X. It is classified as not prime farmland. There's Ponderay Rock Outcrop Complex, classified as not prime farmland. Selly Fine Sandy Loam, which is classified as all areas are prime farmland. And Mission Silt Loam, which is classified as farmland of state importance if drained. So a full list of the agencies that were noticed of this file can be found in Appendix A of the staff report. We did not receive any comments from agencies. We received no comment replies from ITD, Northside Fire District, Idaho Fish and Game, and Idaho Department of Environmental Quality. All the other agencies that were noticed for this file did not respond. And we've received no public comments on this file. So we'll go into the criteria for Ag Forest 20. The Agricultural Forestry District is established to provide an agricultural and forestry pursuits, including livestock production, forestry, horticulture, floriculture, viticulture, and necessary accessory uses for treating, storing, and processing agricultural products. The purpose of the AF district is to preserve and protect and maintain that areas that are rural in character and the integrity of the forest woodland areas where viable agricultural pursuits can be feasible, and to avoid fragmentation of forests and farms. These purposes are accomplished by establishing residential density limits and conservation development standards to retain areas sized for efficient farming, allowing for uses related to agricultural production and limiting non-agricultural uses to those compatible with agriculture or requiring close proximity for the support of agriculture. So the use of this zone is appropriate in areas designated by the comprehensive plan as follows. AF 20 in all areas designated as prime ag forest land in the comprehensive plan. The AF 20 zone is also appropriate in areas designated as ag forest land in the comprehensive plan that also feature prime agricultural soils, are characterized by agricultural or forestry uses, in areas where one or more of the following apply. Limited services characterized by slopes steeper than 30%, where access may be absent or limited to substandard road systems, or where large tracts of land may be devoted to ag forest production. So for the agricultural forestry 10, AF 10 in areas designated as ag forest land in the comprehensive plan that do not feature prime agricultural soils, but where agricultural and forestry pursuits remain viable. These areas may be within or adjacent to city areas of city impact, or where lands are afforded fire protection, access to standard roads, and other services. And this is just a quick overview of the 2 zoning districts, once again. We'll get to the agricultural forestry 20 staff analysis, whether it contains prime agricultural soils. So the parcel contains 4 types of soil: ponderay, rock outcrop complex, silicified sandy loam, H&X, and mission silt loam. According to the natural resources component of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan, H&X, located in the dark green on the western part of the property, and ponderay rock outcrop complex, which is the darker blue on the northeastern and northeastern portions of the property, are considered not prime farmland. These soils make up approximately 5 acres of the project site. Not prime farmland is considered as all other soil types not classified as prime farmland or farmland of statewide importance are classified as not prime farmland, per the natural resources component of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan. Selly silt loam, which is the gold color in the middle, and mission silt loam, which is the light green on the southeastern side, are considered all areas of prime farmland and farmland of statewide importance if drained respectively. Selly silt loam is classified as 4E if it is not irrigated. 4E classification is described as Class 4 soils have severe limitations that restrict the choice of plants, require very careful management, or both. And subclass E is made up of soils for which the susceptibility to erosion is the dominant problem or hazard affecting their use. Erosion susceptibility and past erosion damage are the major soil factors that affect soils in this subclass. It should be noted that farmland of statewide importance has not been recognized as prime farmland soil by the Comprehensive Plan or by the state of Idaho. Characterized by agricultural or forestry uses. According to the Bonner County Assessor data, the parcel is currently receiving an agricultural or timber tax exemption on approximately 19 acres of the property. Surrounding areas appear to have similar tax exemptions. Whether it's characterized by slopes steeper than 30%. The parcel does contain slopes steeper than 30%, as shown in red on the legend to the right-hand side of the screen. The parcel has mostly areas of 0 to 29.9%, approximately 18 acres, and contains approximately 2 acres of areas with slopes that are approximately 30% grade or steeper. According to the land use portion of the comprehensive plan for density ranges, properties that are level to moderately sloped are appropriately sized to be 5 to 10 acres. Access may be absent or limited to substandard road systems. Access to the parcel is by way of Thimbleberry Lane, a privately owned and maintained road, and Colburn Culver, a Bonner County owned and maintained public right-of-way. Bonner County Road and Bridge did not comment as to the construction of Colburn Culver Road, and there is no information provided to the construction and quality of Thimbleberry Road. Where large tracts of land may be devoted to ag forest production. Within 1,200 feet of this property, there are 19 properties. 11 of these properties, including the project site, are sized at 20 acres or larger, ranging from 20 to 80 acres in size. These larger parcels all appear to have the capability to be devoted to ag forest production or are currently being used for ag forest production. Now for agricultural forestry 10, the comprehensive plan designation. So the property has a comprehensive plan designation of ag forest land, which is devoted to properties of 10 to 20 acres in size. As of the date of this report, the Planning Commission has proposed changes to the comprehensive plan map countywide. The proposed land use designation for this parcel is to remain as ag forest land, which would continue to be compatible with 10 to 20 acre parcels. Whether they do not feature prime agricultural soils, but where agricultural forestry pursuits remain viable. As stated above, the property contains soils that are considered to be non-prime farmland, and one soil that is considered to be farmland of statewide importance. These soils make up approximately 50% of the property. Silicified sandy loam is considered prime farmland soil and makes up approximately 10 acres of the property. And this property is receiving an agricultural and forest tax exemption on 19 of the 20-acre parcel per Bonner County assessor data. Within or adjacent to an area of city impact. This property is not located within an area of city impact, but is located approximately 2.4 miles as the crow flies from the city of Kootenai's area of city impact. Whether it is afforded fire protection services, this property is located within the service area of Northside Fire District. Additionally, this parcel is afforded other services, including Bonner County EMS, Bonner County Sheriff. Avista Utilities provides power, an individual well, and an individual septic system. Access to standard roads and other services. Access to the parcel is by way of Thimbleberry Lane, a privately owned and maintained road, and Colburn Culver Road, Bonner County owned and maintained public right-of-way. Bonner County Road and Bridge did not comment as to the construction of Colburn Culver Road, and there's been no information provided to the construction and quality of Thimbleberry Road. On the October 17th, 2024 hearing, the Zoning Commission recommended approval of this file in a unanimous 4-0 vote. That concludes my presentation. I can answer any questions if you have any for me.
I've got a quick question for you, Alex.
Okay.
So half of this parcel contains silly fine sandy loam, which is a prime farmland soil.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you tell me what the difference between prime farmland soil and prime agriculture soil is?
You know, the comprehensive plan designates, and these designations come from, I believe, is it USDA that soil is coming from?
Sorry.
So half the property has prime farmland soil, but in their prerequisites, if you will, for the 20-acre lots, it says that it has prime agricultural soil. Is that one and the same, or
We've
is
used
it two
those as
different
synonyms,
things?
Yeah, there's a couple of these that, like the farmland of statewide importance. I know the planning commission has done a pretty deep dive into what that means. And they've determined that statewide importance is not prime farmland. That's a different designation. But the one you're calling out, yes, is prime farmland.
So silly fine sandy loam is prime agricultural soil.
Yes.
As is Mission
Yes.
Silt Loam.
There you
The
go.
Yeah, I had
the
to-
Mission Silt Loam is the farmland of statewide importance, which isn't considered to be prime farmland.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, in the new land use descriptions, which will change the zoning descriptions, the plan, you shouldn't really take this into consideration. Just know we're trying to fix this because the planning commission understands the frustration behind using soil types and slopes. So they're trying to go away from using soil types and slopes to define zoning, so, and land use descriptions. But this is what we're with right now, this is what they've applied under, so
Okay.
we're working on the fix. It's forthcoming.
Okay. That might be welcomed.
Right.
That was the only question I had, Alex.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Donkey, do you have anything?
No, I wanted that same clarification.
So can I ask you to pull up your layers and see how big that sandy loam area is? Because on Alex's slide up there, it looked like it was just only on one or two parcels. It wasn't like a huge area. It stops right there in terms
Yeah,
of your
you're
orange
right.
or something. I would like to see a broader view
Oh, sure.
of that
Yeah, let me pull up the map.
So you'd like to see the soils layer.
yeah.
And let me, hold on, let me get rid of that. So this is a significant, now these colors are different
Yeah. I
on this
see.
map, but what was the gold?
This, what is the gold?
This, what I'll call purple, right here,
Right.
is the gold
Is
on
This,
the staff report.
the prime ag soils.
Yeah, so it's
It's not very much.
significant.
Oh, compared to
So here's the
Is
property.
this the same as this?
So here's it's a little hard to see, so there's the property boundary.
Gotcha.
So this entire center of the property is all of that prime ag soil.
So, Alex, so the green and the yellow are both prime ag soils?
But the parcel is only this, not all of this out here.
Right.
So do you happen to have the acreage or percentages of the soil types on for the parcel?
Said 50%.
50 Selly fine loam
Yeah,
makes
so
up
half.
approximately 50%,
Thank you.
and the other 3 is obviously 50%.
And it makes sense that it looks like historically, that's the area that's been farmed,
Right.
and then the rest has been left in timber because it's the other soil types.
Yep.
Yeah, it looks like since I took that screenshot, the colors have changed.
The colors are a little different
So-
now. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, there's no gold.
Well, sometimes for what it translates and it's weird.
Yeah, but it is still the same
Oh,
soils.
they shifted the color.
They change, yeah, on the mapping,
All the colors
overlay,
are
they
different.
changed the color.
That's weird.
And now we have like 2 shades of purple, which is not as helpful.
No, and the gold is big.
Yeah, the gold way over there, it's a different area.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it's 50% of
Okay.
the parcel. And
So we don't
then,
have anything else for Alex?
I do not.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank
Yeah, no
you.
problem.
Dan Provo, Project Rip. I have some more pictures. I'm comfortable with these. You can look at them, see right where you're at. Okay, so, let's jump right to the LiDAR. We got a bigger picture there than the screen. So it's a little easier to see. There's a little bit of a bench in the middle. This kind of helps as just another picture with, there's kind of a slope right here, but it's full of the trees and so forth. It's just like a bench level, and it's about 11 feet or so, 11, 13 feet difference in elevation from the front of it to the back of it. Makes a nice level spot up here for the house. Also, you can see where kind of like, soils, we don't have a layout for the soils map, do we? We're just looking at the, it kind of fits. You can see where that thumb goes back up in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you have your meadow here and here. Let's look at these in a minute. So I wanted to touch bases on the silt loam. The prime ag soils is Selly silt loam and the mission silt loam. They're classified as 4E. If not irrigated, these soils have severe limitations that restrict the choice of plants, require very careful management, or both. The soils for which the susceptibility to erosion is a dominant problem or hazard affecting their use. So it's not really an ideal type of soil for growing crops. I don't believe any crops have ever been grown in there. You might have your farm hay tractor running through there and gathering some what grows kind of naturally in there. Moving right along, you can see back here in the trees, I think you're all familiar with how Culver and Culver run in the north. It's about the north side area and it runs down that slope. That's what this slope is right here. This runs across Culver and Culver off to the west. So that's typical. It kind of fades out back once it gets over into here, fades out a little bit. So a lot of that slopes back in the trees up the northwest corner. Wouldn't be a whole lot of use up in there. Here's an overall view map of the existing zones. We have light green is the forest, Ag Forest 10. The dark green is the current Ag Forest 20. We have directly to the north of us, Ag Forest 10. That was, I'm thinking about 3 years ago, was changed into the Ag Forest 10 from the 20. all the dots within the existing ag forest 20. Every one of these dots is on a 10-acre or less site. So you can see there's quite a few up still laying within the ag forest 20 that were previous to that change, smaller than 10s, or 10s or smaller. And there's quite a bit. So zooming in just a little bit closer, the dark green is our subject parcel. We have off to the west of us 2 existing 10-acre pieces. Off to the east of us, we have 4 existing 5-acre pieces. To the north, of course, is 10-acre zone. So we're in a prime spot here for the landowner, the applicant, to have what they have to the west and the north, and also would still be larger than the 5 acres that exist to the east. And you can also see the scattering of the existing 10s, whether it be in the 20-acre zone right now or not. A lot of 10s out there. The access road, Thimbleberry, runs flat from over and over until we get just back in the tree line where it starts turning to the south, and that road continues up and loops around pretty good up into the hills. It's more slope, as you can see, up to the east and beyond our property. It's well rocked, it's wide, it's about a 22-foot wide road. Thimbleberry is the access point. It does these little rolling things like the running through the plains there. But once you turn and head south, it starts heading uphill and the road narrows up. So that's beyond our point though. We have an existing home site on there. And the plans on this one is, I know it's always good to know where we're headed with this. He's gonna split it into 2 family members again for the kids. And so we'd be running similar to the ones to the west. We'd have an east and a west 10-acre piece in there. And so it kind of fits with where the home site is now and that mid-range slope that's in front of the home to the west. Can I answer any questions?
I don't think I have any. Commissioner Donkey?
I don't have any either at this time, thank you.
At this time, I'll open it up to public comment that would support this zone change.
Check to see if there's anyone online.
Nobody's online.
Nobody's online? Okay, so is there any public comment neutral on this zone change? Is there any public comment against this zone change? Seeing none, open it up for deliberation.
Alrighty. So Commissioner, I'm walking through the zone designation checklist we have for agriculture and forest 20 standards versus agriculture and forest 10 standards. And as I walk through the 20-acre minimum standards, the first one being, does it contain prime agricultural soils? So I check that as yes. Is it characterized by agriculture or forest uses? I check that as yes. We have a tax exempt status for approximately 19 acres of the property, or the majority of the property, for agriculture and timber. And then the other criteria is one or more of the following. Is it characterized by slopes of 30% or greater? I would say no, based on that LiDAR map.
It's a little bit there on the property line.
I'd say it's very much a minority aspect feature. access may be absent or limited to substandard road systems. I would say no. I think it has adequate service for the density. But then on the third one, large tracts of land may be devoted to ag forest production. I would say not only may they be, but a number of them are based on the staff report and looking at the aerial. So I believe we can check the box as yes. So if I walk down through this list, then I would say that this parcel does appropriately qualify for Ag and Forest 20 standards. Then by comparison, as I walk down through the 10-acre Ag and Forest standards, does it have the Ag and Forest Comp Plan designation? Yes. Does it not feature prime agricultural soils? Well, it does feature prime agricultural soils, so we're not able to check that box, yes. Within or adjacent to an ACI, I am trying to recall what the data was on that one.
I think in our comp plan, the actual wording says may be within
Gotcha.
or adjacent to an ACI.
Yeah, good point.
It doesn't have to be.
And actually, we can even stop there because the fact that it does contain prime agricultural soils means it doesn't qualify.
So, that would be one requirement, and I guess, and that could be debated, I think, because it's listed, the Sully silt loam is listed as a prime agricultural soil, but yet not on its own. I've heard this come up many times in the past also. It has to be watered, so you can't just grow alfalfa or something on it and hope that if something might grow depending on the weather. It would have to be maintained with irrigation supply. Otherwise, it doesn't seem to grow anything. So
I don't think we have the option, though, with the way the code is written. It simply states if it contains it. And so I don't believe we're being asked or afforded the determining what level of crops can be grown or what inputs might be necessary. I believe the criteria is just stating, does it feature prime agricultural soils or does it not for each of the two designations? So unless there's something I've missed that you're aware of, please point out. I don't believe we have the purview to say, well, you can or can't grow certain things. It simply is designated as a prime farmland or a prime agricultural soil. So that's the thing where I don't believe we can kind of split the hairs on that one.
okay.
I don't know if anybody, if you're willing, if planning staff can point something out that I'm missing. But otherwise, I don't see where we're afforded the opportunity to try to determine what kinds of crops can be grown, simply that it is designated.
May I?
Please do.
So I believe the code states that whether or not it features prime agricultural soil. So if you could expand on what feature means to the board, then that would be great as well.
That's a great point.
Does not feature prime. So there we go with
Is it
the
a
same
feature?
thing
Yes.
as
Another vague
the
term.
characterized.
Another vague term. In my opinion, because approximately half of the property, especially when we look at the current open area that wants to be utilized more, is the area of the prime agricultural soil designation. To me, that's a significant feature. The code doesn't even use the word significant or major or greater than 50, it just says feature. So I think it would be a difficult argument if it was one small, 10% corner, but because it's the majority of the center of the property, to me, it's a pretty significant feature, and I would have difficulty claiming otherwise. So that's my current position on the fact that I believe it does, as the code uses the term feature prime agricultural soil.
Yep, and that is a hard one to wrap my head around, because I look at it a little bit differently, and especially when you pulled it up on your GIS there. I think the house was within that prime agricultural soil area. if I remember correctly.
Yeah, right there.
So that's taking out part of the, obviously you can't farm it where the house is, right? So now I'm trying to throw in a little bit of my own personal, I'm gonna say common sense. That area around the house isn't gonna be farmed, it may be landscaped or wherever. So now we're cutting down the area of the prime ag soil even further. But I'm gonna leave that for a second. I'm gonna jump back to the Ag Forestry 20 standards, where it says they want one or more of the following for it to be considered into the 20 acre standard. And on the last one, large tracts of land may be devoted to ag forest production. I have a question mark by that one, because I'm looking at the map here, and we got to go quite a ways to get a large parcel of land that may be devoted to agroforest production.
Okay, if you go to the next page in the package, I'm sorry, one more page, after the soils map, page 16, the bottom of that page.
Okay.
Large tracts of land may be devoted to ag forest production. The staff report says within 1,200 feet of this property, there are 19 properties. 11 of these 19 properties, including the project site, are sized at 20 acres or larger, ranging from 20 to 80 acres. These larger parcels all appear to have the capability to be devoted to ag forest production or are currently being used for ag forest production. That was the reason I based my response in believing that criteria is being met, was based on that staff evaluation.
Okay.
Commissioners, may I buy one more time?
Sure, Alex.
So as we're looking through the code and we've talked about how things are maybe a little vague, if you wouldn't mind expanding on what the board considers a large tract of land.
That's a great question.
Because some people consider large to be, 100, some people consider large to be 5.
That's a
So,
great point. Thank you for raising that. From my perspective, when we look at our zoning in the county, 20 acre minimum is the larger of parcel sizes of which people build homes that we have a designation for. And so the way I look at it is based on the rest of what we have for zoning designations, 20 acres and larger in my mind would be considered a large tract of land based on how we've defined things as being 20, 10, 5, or smaller with our other designations for areas that can be used for residential use. And then if we look just at the agriculture side, we have 10s and 20s, and so 20s are the larger of the two designations. So in my mind, I would say 20 would be the smallest I would consider to be a large tract for agriculture, and then just go up from there. And then their evaluation indicates 20 to 80 acres are the ranges and sizes that are the 11 properties that are accounted for within 1,200 feet of the subject property.
So have we done away with the 40 acre? We have 40 acre minimums.
And that's just the forest designation, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm just saying for ones that are designated to do
Ag forest.
ag forest or agriculture, right, in the sense of also typically being looked at for blended with a residential use where you're living on the farm. But yeah, from an ag forest perspective, because we have 20 acres as the top end, but we also have 10, to me 10, I'm splitting hairs because we don't have it clearly defined, which I appreciate
Right.
the question.
Right.
To me, 10 is not, I wouldn't consider that a large tract, but small farms are the majority of the types of farms we now have and are continuing to see develop. And so I believe that that's consistent with what agriculture is doing today. A lot of farms are actually on 5 and 10 acre parcels, but I would not call that a large tract. But
And that brings up a good point too. I think, my personal opinion is that there would probably be more acreage farmed on that one parcel if it was 2 10-acre lots, because both people would probably want to have, 5 acres of farmland or whatever. Whereas if we left it in the 20-acre minimum, I think that there's a good possibility that whoever owns that or who's there now is not gonna develop any further agricultural land than what is already there, that clearing that we see in the picture. So if you were to give another person a piece of that property, they're gonna probably, I'm just assuming here, and I probably shouldn't, but I know that if I bought it, that I would cut down more of those trees and develop more farm land. So to me, that's a two-way street. On the large tracts of land, to me, first thing that kind of popped to my mind was 50 acres. I don't consider 20 acres being a large tract of land, especially these days. And to your point, when you're saying the largest that we have in our zone is a 20, that's the largest minimum. That doesn't necessarily mean that that is a large tract of land. That would be the minimum size of a larger tract of land, is the way I kind of look at it.
I see what you're saying, but because it's under the heading of Ag and Forest 20 standards, to me, that's helping to define the fact that 20 is included in that thinking.
20 would be a minimum.
Right.
Yeah,
And
so if
so
you had 40
the
acres.
11 adjacent are 20 to 80. So those are all the minimum 20 or larger. So I believe that that is indicating that we have a significant number of parcels that meet the minimum or are larger that either are or could be devoted to agriculture. And everything surrounding the subject parcel right now is zoned either AF10 or AF20. So it's all zoned for agriculture
Right.
as well. So we're in an agricultural district essentially, and then we're just looking at some varying lot sizes. And there are some tracts that are much larger, and then, some that are just meeting the minimum of 20, if we look at it that way. So,
And I don't know how we went down that rabbit hole of large tracts of land. It must have been something you were reading. Or
yeah,
no, it was
it's the last
one.
item,
That was
right?
mine,
So
yes.
in order to say that this parcel qualifies appropriately for the 20 acre,
Right,
it would have to meet one of those last three bullets.
right. And to me, it doesn't. I guess that was the point I was trying to make. Because large tracts of land, to me, and this is where it's always hard, where there's 2 or 3 people trying to come together to
Yep.
determine the same thing. To me, 40, 50 acres is a larger tract of land where someone is actually doing the possibility of some commercial farming or haying or something like that. That would be a large tract of land in my mind. The 20 acres is just a minimum for those larger tracts. To me, doesn't necessarily mean that makes it a large tract. So
So then from
that's
that-
why I'm
Okay.
so the way I'm reading the standards for the minimum 20 acre ag forestry is that, in my opinion, it doesn't have one or more of the following
I gotcha.
of those. That's why
Okay.
I'm kind of leaning towards the 10. To me, there's no cut and dry, black and white, because as you bring up, then we go to the 10 acre minimum standards and we bring up the soil content.
Right.
So now we're flip-flopping back and forth,
Yeah.
and it's like,
So can you confidently say that it does not feature prime agricultural soils?
no.
So can you then say that?
But
it
we
meets the
can't
10?
also say that it's characterized by 30% more slopes, because it does have some. So we get into that,
Right.
that interpretation of wording again,
Yeah.
where it obviously does have more than 30% slopes on the property. But I think we both agree that doesn't come into play. For one, it's not very much, and it's on the property line. It's
Yeah.
not dividing, it's
Perimeter.
not down the middle of the property.
I agree with you.
I don't, the common sense thing there, again, is like it doesn't really come into play. Yes, you cannot say that it does not have prime agricultural soil, because that's in our staff report. 50% of it actually, which is really borderline, because that's always kind of been the rule of thumb in the past, not saying that it makes it right, but with the slopes, what percentage of slopes on that property does characterize it to have? Is it 5%? Is it 50%? Is it 2/3? there's no clear definition of that, and I'm hopeful and I'm thankful to hear that the planning department may be eliminating the slopes and the soils to where we got to deal with what we have in front of us today, understandably. But it does kind of, in my opinion, kind of thwart the whole thing. Because now we're trying to deliberate about slopes and soils, right?
Yeah, we are. We're at this
And
point, we're deliberating about large tracts of agriculture or forest production land versus soils.
Right, and looking at this piece of property, so the intended purpose, and I know we can't make decisions on that either, but I think it does come into play a little bit because the way this parcel is, there is a house on it right now, correct? And they're gonna use, if they choose to use that prime soil area to grow anything, or they're not gonna develop it any more than what it is. I think the issue that I brought up earlier is if you were to split it and create two 10-acre parcels, which 10 acres is still plenty enough land to grow things on, to have a small hay field or have a couple cows or horses in a pasture or whatever. But in order to do that, it's gonna force the two property owners or the new property owner to take more of those trees out and actually develop more. I think we would almost be encouraging more agricultural development if we went with 210s instead of 120. And I don't.
I understand your perspective. I don't want to use conjecture about what people might do on the property in the future to come to a decision is my take on it.
I guess my point was, I don't think we're preserving any ag lands by keeping it at 20. I think that's kind of my point, kind of summed up.
I have a slightly different perspective. I tend to think that the smaller a parcel becomes, more easily and likely someone might find it affordable and useful just for residential purposes and not to maintain agriculture. And then over time, if we subdivide, we also encourage future further subdivision because that becomes one of the rationales that people use, and they say, well, we already have smaller parcels in the area, so it's okay to keep doing more. And you know,
I understand
like on a prior file,
your
sometimes
point.
we have an island of something and maybe it doesn't make sense to stand out and be different.
Right.
But if we start to create something that moves it in a different trending direction, then it can become the basis for future similar decisions.
Right.
And if
I
you
understand
don't
that to a point, but looking at this parcel and the way it's laid out, and if you were to take, a parcel, 3 or 4 parcels away,
Yeah.
I would probably be opposed to splitting this, into 210s because you are taking away something that is already set up and can be used for agricultural purposes. And I
Can I throw
I'm
another
gonna
idea at you?
respectfully disagree.
That's
Sure.
okay.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's really popular in small farm and agriculture right now is rotational grazing and doing more free range and open pasture areas. So for example, if I look at the north third of that parcel that has timber and we don't have steep slopes and things of that nature, so it's pretty easily accessible. One of the things somebody would do from an agricultural perspective, potentially in that area, would be to fence the perimeter and then use that for things like goats, swine, chickens, all sorts of different livestock that would actually do really well in a timbered pasture. And so I don't want to preclude the idea that having a lightly timbered area on the parcel means that it wouldn't still be used for agriculture without having to clear cut it and just open it up. Because that's something that is also a very viable agricultural use. And if you don't mind, I'd like to ask planning staff for a clarification.
Sure.
Because the other area, item to consider under the AF10 designation is whether it's within or adjacent to an area of city impact. And the staff report indicates that it's not located within an area of city impact, but it is located approximately 2.4 miles as the crow flies from the city of Kootenai's area of city impact. Is there a distance designation anywhere we can reference when it comes to being adjacent to an ACI, or do we have another vague term that we're having to deal with?
So on one of the slides that Alex had up there, it had the complete sentence, because this is a fraction of the sentence. That's why I wrote it down. And it actually says maybe within or adjacent to an ACI. So if it says maybe, then it may not be just as easily. That's really, why not just take that sentence out? I don't understand why it's there in the first place. It may be, well, okay, so I'm guessing it might, the only reason I can see that that's there is that if this agricultural forest property was close to a city, that would still allow it to be an agricultural forest zone and not go into a rural zone, would be my assumption, but that gets me in trouble.
So to answer Commissioner Domke's question, is adjacent to is up for interpretation as well.
Okay, so we don't have a distance designation anywhere?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, so we don't have any reference to a distance. Because it would seem to me that like you were saying, Commissioner, the point is, if it's within, obviously, or if it's, I'm going to say, in close proximity to, another vague term, but maybe better than adjacent, trying to interpret the intent, since within is one part of the definition, then having it be a smaller parcel makes sense because you're already dealing with adjacent parcels that are smaller yet. And so you're not trying to force in large parcels right up against a city.
Right.
Or a future city designation being an area of city impact. And so my interpretation of that is, we know it's obviously not within, being almost 2.5 miles away, and that it's surrounded by a whole lot of agriculture and forest designated land. In fact, how far do we have to go?
2.4 miles.
Yeah, so, but I mean, even, I'm just looking at
It's not gonna happen.
yeah, so,
Right.
so in my mind, then, because we're not within, and the adjacency doesn't seem to be what I'll call close enough.
Let's put the whole sentence in there, maybe.
Right.
So it may be within an ACI.
I'm just trying to say, again, as we're looking at the balance of
Right.
how many boxes can we check on one versus the other.
Right.
In my mind, I cannot clearly say that, yes, this, within or adjacent to, so that's not a criteria that I think would favor the 10-acre designation. So in my mind, there's 2 strikes against the 10-acre because it does feature prime agricultural soils. I can't check the ACI box. Sounds like I can check all the necessary boxes on the 20. You and I have a disagreement on the last box about large tracts being maybe devoted to ag and forest production.
Right.
So we have a difference of opinion on what large tracts are.
Right.
So we have one check mark, or one box, if you will, to check in question on ag and forest 20. I believe we have 2 in question on ag and forest 10.
And I believe we have 1. Because of the wording, maybe within it, so maybe, to me, takes it out of the equation. It shouldn't even be there. And like I said earlier, I think that it might be there actually to preserve ag forest zoning closer to city limits instead of going to rural, which is kind of what a lot of people are trying to do. They're trying to preserve ag forest 10. So if this was a quarter of a mile from an ACI, then they may want to take it out of ag forest and put it into a rural zone. The way I'm reading that is they are probably trying to keep it an ag forestry zone, even though it's closer to an area of city impact. Not necessarily a requirement that it has to be.
Yeah, I understand that perspective. And I guess the way I'm going to almost read it in the reverse to say, because it's so far away from the city limits and from the ACI, that its higher and better use is to stay a larger agricultural tract.
But then that would kind of contradict that. That's Ag Forest 10, and it's the same
Correct.
distance from the ACI that
Right.
this property is. So
But I
how does
don't
that even
know-
come into play?
And that's where I don't know if the deliberation process or standards used to make that decision previously are ones that I would agree with. That's where I come from on that. I mean, we have a lot of zone changes that have occurred, and/or zone designations that I don't think actually comply with what the code says. But these are disputable matters.
Right.
So arguable
And
matters.
we're not talking about these, so I can't go into,
Right.
maybe these don't have prime agricultural
Yeah,
soils.
yeah, and I don't know.
I don't know.
Because that would be a clear criteria to
Right,
say
I
they
was-
don't qualify for 20, and I don't know either.
I was just trying to
Yeah.
address line item by line item.
Yeah, I'm
And
just
by
looking
addressing
at,
the ACI issue, if that's the issue, then all of this should be darker green until we get closer into the area
yeah, if
city
you look at only the
impacts.
ACI criteria.
Right, so
That's
I
where,
guess
to
I'm just
me,
trying to discredit that line.
With
if you
soil,
will.
when you have some good soil and you're far away from small tracts of land and other not compatible uses, that's the best place for agriculture.
Right.
Because you have less conflicts, you're more isolated, so you're going to create less issues with neighbors. You have like uses all around. And so to me, that's where I'm seeing, reading the code and the comp plan intent to say, we're trying to encourage maintaining larger tracts that have more attributes that support agriculture in a more meaningful way. And if, while we can still make agriculture work on smaller tracts, it's less efficient or less capable, and that's why we're willing to have a 10-acre designation. But to me, that's the breaking line of,
So, and I would understand that a lot better if we were in a area that had larger tracts of land. I would agree
although we
with
have
that.
11 that are 20 to 80 acres.
Right, which I'm looking at this picture here, and it must be, these couple right here, because literally it is surrounded by 10 and 5 acre lots.
Yeah,
To
we
the
do
east and
have
west,
a
right?
bunch of other ones.
So again, it's a little bit of an island, if you will. And then to the north is zoned Ag Forest 10, right? So to the north is Ag Forest 10, to the west is 10-acre lots, to the east are 5-acre lots. So to have a 20-acre large tract of land for farming is kind of weird in that location that it's in. If this was up here someplace where there was a larger tract of land, I would absolutely go along with that.
Can I show you this on the map, Commissioner? 'Cause I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So here's the subject parcel.
Right.
Directly north is a 80-acre lot. So it's contiguous with the north property line.
Right.
And then contiguous to that is a 314-acre lot.
Yep.
So
That is
contextually-
zoned, Ag Forest 10.
Right, that got rezoned recently.
So to the north is a large 80-acre
That's
tract of
the-
land.
Yep.
And I would consider that a large tract of land, but it's also zoned 10-acre minimum instead of 20. And to the other three sides of that property, it's not so. So
But it doesn't talk about the zoning, it just says large tracts of land may be devoted to ag and forest production.
Right, I was just bringing up that I agree that 80 acres is a large tract of
Right,
land.
right. So we have in the vicinity, directly adjacent to the north, and then others in the vicinity, the nearby vicinity. Oh, that's not helpful. We have other tracts of land, all of which are one designation or another, 10 or 20 of ag and forest. So they're all designated as ag and forest. And we have 30s, 40s, 80s, over 300. That is why I believe we're I don't see a argument against large tracts of land may be devoted to agri-forest production, just because of those adjacencies.
So would it be safe to say that we are not going to agree on this? I'm
It
asking
sounds
a
like it at this
simple
point.
question.
Yeah, I think we may have reached that point. I think we've each presented our ideas a few different ways, so maybe we're,
Just a little bit of information to help y'all one way or the other. Dan Provolt again, that 300 acre and that 80 acre both ran alpaca ranch. They're not growing anything. They have cows, and of course they've sold off some of that. But we're talking about soils being a major determination. Soils don't matter if you've got cows in there grazing around, or you're gonna have a farm that's growing chickens and sheep and everything else. I think that one of the reasons they're getting rid of the soils declaration as to if you've got prime to a certain extent, you can't split it from a 20 to a 10. I mean, that's a deadline shot there. I believe there's a lot to be said about the 2 10s already to the west and the 4 5s to the right, in the same designation, the same zoning as it is now. You've already got people doing that. I know it happened in the past, but they're surrounded on 3 sides. 2 10s on the west, 4 5s on the east, and Ag Forest 10 to the north. I was part of that whole Ag Forest 10 to the north zone change up in there. They've got prime soils in there also. So to have this thing denied just because there's prime soils, which by the way, that was a flyover study, that they didn't go out there and do potholes. They don't know exactly where their prime soils really are. And even though they did finally call them because of the type of soil, they graded them down to where you really have to be careful and grow certain things, and you have to take care of it. And I mean, based on out there and they're plowing their big fields and they're growing crops and things for baling up and feeding animals. It's completely different than that. And if you also look at the aerial overlay, you can see down there in the south portion there, you got water draining through there. You're not gonna run a field through that either. That's something that wasn't shown, and I think that takes away from the prime ag soil declaration.
so I'd like to thank you. I'd like to get back to the deliberation. I'm going to respectfully disagree with everything you just said. So there was an insinuation that running animals on a farm is an agriculture. Livestock is a critical part of agriculture. Having viable soils to grow hay and feed for livestock is another critical feature of agriculture. And then the reality is that if you look at the majority of the soils in Bonner County and North Idaho, most of them require some amount of additional input in order to be successful with raising livestock, growing crops, doing agriculture in general. So we wouldn't be producing food in Bonner County if we didn't have to, in some way, amend soils, irrigate, drain. So I don't find any of those to be legitimate arguments against the idea that these are not agricultural uses or capable of supporting agricultural uses. Draining a field is a natural part of agriculture. It's our comprehensive plan doesn't disallow, it actually states the fact that our prime farmland soils are either designated, categorized as are all prime farmland, or the prime farmland if irrigated, or if drained and protected from flooding. So all of those designations, if you have to irrigate it, if you have to drain it, if you have to protect it from flooding, those are still considered prime farmland soils. And that, I believe, is the practical reality of what it takes to perform agriculture in the majority of the land of Bonner County, unless you happen to be one of the minority areas that has beautiful soils from a floodplain. So I'm sorry, but I just can't accept any of those arguments. So I want to be thoughtful about not disregarding the fact that there's an over 300 acre tract of land that has been for years devoted to agriculture. So when we look at what the criteria is for determining a zone designation or making a zone change, where agriculture is a generic term for all of these types of uses, right? From forestry, timber production to all forms of agriculture, whether you're raising crops or livestock. And so I don't think we can differentiate between those. It simply is agriculture or forestry. It simply is prime agricultural soil, regardless of the type. And I just don't want us to get distracted from those facts.
Alex?
Alex Van, planning staff. So I just wanted to kind of give you guys options because it sounded like you weren't going to come to an agreement today. So the option would be you could put motions forward. Sounds like they'd be 1-to-1 votes. The other option would be to continue it until Commissioner Williams can join the commission and she could be the tie-breaking vote. I would suggest that, but that's completely up to the board.
Okay, thank you.
We can't have
Jake Cabell, Planning Director. We don't have an underlying decision on this to rely on, so right now you have a recommendation from the zoning commission. So a 1-1 vote is a failure to decide on anything. So the legal ramifications of that are very unknown. So really we need a determinative vote or an affirmative vote from the board, one direction or another. So if it is going to be down to a 1-1, I would say we have to continue it until we have the majority vote here, or you guys agree on something. So.
Do you have any input on why the zoning commission recommended it or not?
Their findings of fact were updated after the decision. So if you look at their recommendation letter, it'll have, generally the last 2 or 3 are going to pull from their deliberation, and we've added the findings from their deliberation at that time. I don't recall this specific hearing and all the details that went into it. Maybe Alex does.
Okay.
No. It was some time ago, if I remember right.
It was in October.
Yeah.
Okay.
So October is when they did it. So if it was last month, they probably would be more fresh on
Maybe.
mind. If you want us to give you a more thorough summary than that, if you decide to continue, we can bring forward some more details at that time.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I would recommend we continue. I think you and I have attempted to see if we could convince the other of a different perspective. I don't think either one of them is successful. I think we're continuing to just respectfully disagree. So I think it might be best to go ahead and continue so we can get a third member to weigh in and see if we can find a tiebreaker.
Okay. You want to make that motion or?
I will. As a clarification, do we need to continue it to a specific date and time?
Yes, please. So I think your next hearing.
Next hearing would be February 26th, I believe.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's right.
February 26th?
And do we need to state a time?
At
So
1:30.
we have a hearing on the 20th that already had a continued file. It was B12 reconsideration, if you wanted to add it to that day, or we could do it on the 26th.
How many
There's one
files
file
do we
that
have on the
day.
20th?
One on each of those days, one on the 20th and then one on the 26th.
Would we like to ask the representative if he has a preference?
I think, yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Okay, so here's what I'd like to be able to do, is go out there and take some soil samples. We're relying on an overfly, it's gotta be very generalized. I know they make it look pretty tight, but that's just making all the lines match. We'd love to be able to go out and do some potholes with the soils analysis and see exactly what's out there. I mean, it's a big deal denying it just because of something that's on a flyover map, and I know it's what everybody uses, it's what we got. But if we could bump out to where I can get past the snow a little bit, some frozen grounds, because they're not gonna chisel through and get a sample. We'd like to be able to dig down with a tool that does that sort of thing. So if we could move out early spring
I have no problem with that.
sometime,
That's your
Are you
preference.
thinking April or,
let's do April.
okay, so there's an April 9th that we have with no hearing file scheduled yet.
That would work for me.
So 4/9 at 1:30? Yeah, my perspective is your preference.
Yep, that'd be good.
Then, based on that discussion, I move to continue file ZC0011-24 to a date certain of 4/9/2025 at 1:30 PM.
I'll step down from the chair and second that. Is there any other discussion on that?
No, sir.
Roll call vote?
Commissioner Donkey?
Yes.
Commissioner Corn?
Yes.
All right. Last but not least.
Number 3.
Commissioner Corn, would you like to? No, go ahead.
I need to open it up for this too, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up this meeting for file number VS0004-24, Title 50 Vacation of Plat. Are there any conflicts of interest?
Commissioner Domke has no known conflicts of interest.
Commissioner Corn has none.
Okay, thank you, commissioners. Alex Van, planning staff for the record. So the final file we have this afternoon is file VS0004-24, a Title 50 plat vacation. This is a vacation of the plat known as Iron Top Ridge. The applicants are requesting a Title 50 plat vacation of Iron Top Ridge recorded in Bonner County records as instrument number 1035134, Book of Plats 21, page 96, on July 1st, 2024. The purpose of this vacation is to extinguish the current plat and create 4 5-acre lots instead of 2 10-acre lots as was recorded by the plat. The 9.71 and 9.77 acre lots are zoned Rural 5. The project site is located off Tahoe Drive, and this was platted through a minor land division, file number MLD 0020-24. This is the copy of the plat that was recorded in Bonner County records. So the standard that we followed for this staff report comes from Idaho Code Title 50-1306A, Vacation of Plats. So the plat acreage is approximately 19.48 acres. Lot 1 of this plot contains an intermittent stream. The entire property, or the entire plat, is located within Special Flood Hazard Area Zone X. There are wetlands on Lot 1. There are a few slopes at 15 to 29% and 30% grade. It contains pond-raised silt loam, which is considered not prime farmland. And the area to be vacated is 19.48 acres. And the access to these properties is provided via Tahoe Drive, a privately owned and maintained road. So a full list of agencies' notice of this file can be found in the attached Appendix A. The following agencies provided comment. We received comment from Panhandle Health District, and we received no comment replies from Idaho Department of Fish and Game and Idaho Transportation Department. None of the other agencies that were notified of this request replied. This petition was also noticed to neighbors within 300 feet on, it should be, sorry, not September 24th, January 29th, 2025, and was noticed in the paper on January 29th, 2025 and February 5th, 2025. As of the date of the staff report, we have received public comments. So So the standards review, so the project has been reviewed for conformance with Idaho Code 50-1306A, vacations of plats, and Idaho Code 50-1317. The following facts relate to the standards of review. The petition to vacate a platted area complies with all state procedures set forth in Idaho Code 50-1306A and Idaho Code 50-1317. In the case of easements granted for gas, sewer, water, telephone, cable television, power, drainage, and existing travelway, these easements are to be left intact and are not vacated through the provisions of this petition. An abandonment would not impede or deprive any property of legal access. These are the suggested findings of fact. The applicant is requesting to vacate the plat of Iron Top Ridge recorded at instrument number 1035134, Book of Plats 21, page 96. Based on materials submitted in this application, no real property adjoining the area to be vacated would be left without access to an established highway or public right-of-way. This petition was submitted to the Planning Department on September 10th, 2024. This petition was noticed to the neighbors within 300 feet on January 29th, 2025, and was noticed in the newspaper on January 29th and February 5th of 2025. There's one ingress, egress, and utility easement located within the area that is proposed to be vacated, according to the petition. The applicant has not proposed the vacation of this easement. Local utility providers were routed as part of agency review and none responded. All utility easements will remain in place. Vacation of this right-of-way will not extinguish any rights-of-way or easements for the continued use of existing sewer, gas, water, or similar pipelines and appurtenances or other underground facilities. So these are the conclusions of conclusions of law that the commissioners must decide upon. So conclusion 1 is this proposal is or is not compliant with the vacation criteria and standards set forth at Idaho Code 50-1306A and 50-1317. This is the proposed finding. This petition was submitted to the Planning Department on September 10th, 2024. This petition was noticed to neighbors within 300 feet on January 29th, 2025, and was noticed in the newspaper on January 29th, 2025, and February 5th, 2025. There's one ingress, egress, and utility easement located within the areas that are proposed to be vacated. According to the petition, the applicant has not proposed the vacation of these easements. Local utility providers were routed as part of the agency review and none responded. Idaho Code 50-1317 does not apply to this project because this platted area is not located within any city limits. Conclusion 2. By granting of this petition for vacation, no easements will be vacated according to the legal description. The ingress, egress, and utility easement will continue to exist, recorded at instrument number 1031798 per the applicant. You may need to, I don't have the staff report in front of me, but you may need to amend conclusion 2 to say whether no easements will or will not be vacated according to the legal description. It does read a little funny. Conclusion 3, abandonment will not or will impede or deprive any property or legal access. The proposed finding, this petition is to abandon the subject plat. This property and the remaining properties within the plat will not be left without legal access. Conclusion 4, this is the finding that the board will have to consider after all of the evidence is heard and after considering everything that was presented in the staff report. This conclusion is granting of this petition for vacation is or is not in the public's interest. So these are the suggested conditions of approval. A1, the vacation of the platted area shall be effective upon the recording of a resolution by the Bonner County Commissioners granting the vacation. A2, no lots or parcels shall be left without legal access. And these conditions will be required to be met prior to the recording of the resolution. The costs for legal advertisements and recording fees shall be borne by the petitioner, and shall be paid in full to the planning department. And B2, the vacation of the platted area shall only be for the lot as described above. All easements existing on the subject area shall remain in place. And that concludes my presentation. I can answer any questions if you have any for me.
Do you have any questions, Commissioner Donkey?
I do have a few.
Okay.
So what I'd like to do is walk through the applicable Idaho statute, or statutes, to confirm, because we have different criteria that are outlined with regard to what's applicable to this file. So starting in 50-1306A.
I'll have to bring up the
Sure.
code.
Just let me know when you're ready.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, thank you. I want to confirm as part of our deliberation process that we understand which of the subsections of the statute are applicable to this file.
Okay.
So as I look at 50-1306A, the vacation of plats procedure, subsection 1 appears to apply because it can relate to unincorporated areas of the county and therefore comes before the county commissioners. The petition needs to indicate the particular circumstances, contain a legal description of the platted area, name the affected parties. So that appears to be an applicable section.
Yes.
2 states the noticing requirements, which is also applicable. 3 appears to only be associated with an area within an incorporated city, so I believe that's not applicable.
No, so we've spoke with Bill Wilson, and his determination is that city council and board of county commissioners are interchangeable.
Oh, okay.
Unless it is within the city limits.
Okay, so that's how we're to read it.
That
Gotcha.
statute kind of uses those two synonymously throughout.
Yeah.
It's
Okay, I love it when they are
it's not super
inconsistent.
clear. Yeah, I imagine that.
Okay. So then 3 is applicable. Do we know if this is located within 1 mile of the boundaries of a city or
It is not.
county? Okay, it doesn't seem, yeah, great. So 4, subsection 4 is not applicable. 5, dealing with easements for utilities is applicable. 6, public right-of-way is not applicable, I believe.
No, there's no public right of way within this plat.
7, publication costs, the expense of the petitioner, that is applicable. 8, public highway agencies acquiring real property, we do not have that in this case, not applicable. Land exclusive of public right-of-way, not applicable, we already deemed that, correct? That's 9. And then subsection 10 has to do with first-class mail, proof of mailing, so I guess notice, so that is
It's under noticing standard, yes.
Yep.
great.
That's
So-
included in your staff report.
So we can then confirm that Idaho Code 50-1306A, vacation of plats, procedures, subsection 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, and 10 are applicable, and that the staff report has provided information indicating that these have been fulfilled. And then subsection 50-1317?
Yeah, so that's applicable only for areas within city limits.
Okay.
So that would be if a city was vacating a plat.
So then that does not apply to this
It does not
petition,
apply.
even though it said it did in the staff report.
It is because, well, the reason it was stated in there, I believe 50-1306A does call back to 50-1307 or 1317, if I remember correctly. May not.
Don't believe so. I just want to clarify if we're referencing a standard that's not applicable, so that we can remove that from the report. I was confused about the reference to 50-1317, but I figured I was just missing something, so I wanted to clarify that.
Oh, okay. It looks like it's for when, so the beginning of this section, whenever any person, person's firm, association, corporation interested in any city which, if incorporated, is not exercising its corporate functions, may desire to vacate any lot, tract, private road, common plot, or any other part in any such city, it shall be lawful to petition the Board of County Commissioners of the county where such property is located, setting forth the particular circumstances of the case and giving a distinct description. So 50-1317, I'll spare you reading the entire statute, is for unincorporated areas to de-annex from a city and areas that are incorporated that are not exercising its duties as a city to be then incorporated into the.
Which is not the case.
Not the case. It's not located within city limits.
Okay, so that's what, so then I believe we should amend the staff report to remove, under the section that says applicable laws, the following sections of Idaho Code apply to this petition. I believe then we should remove 50-1317, since we're not dealing with a city not exercising its functions within an incorporated area.
That's fine.
So we'll strike that, okay. Trying to do my due diligence to be sure I could say that we were meeting it when, in reading the statute, I couldn't figure out why we needed to, so it's good to confirm. Thank you for clarifying that. That was the only question I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Dan Provo, project rep. Staff covered that pretty well. I think we took care of most of that. Just want to reiterate that all we're vacating is the plat. Everything, all the other easements and everything underlying, whether it be in the plat, to the plat, through the plat, all stay put. None of that changes, so it doesn't take anything away from any of the neighbors out there. The applicant owns both lots, and he just wants to vacate that. So we'll be looking at a different process to move forward from that point, another land application hearing. So we'll take care of any future items from there. Right now, it's just the vacate process. We did have a neighbor's letter in there. I don't know if you read there or not. They were concerned about an item.
I did.
I'd like to clarify that.
From William and Jennifer Giannopoulos and Lunds. William Giannopoulos and Jennifer Lunds, is that the letter you're referring to? It's the very last page of the comments.
Yes. So they reviewed the application and couldn't quite figure out why the 9.71 and the 9.77 on this. It was their belief that it was purposeful to have these acres as this size, so when they sold them, they couldn't be re-subdivided. And I think I'm reading that correct. This is When they originally broke down sections, they had sections that were a little bit large, sections were a little bit small, so they had an adequate ability to go in and just keep splitting. In this case, down to 1/128th of a section, which is 5 acres. We have a small section here, we ended up with 39 acres instead of 40. And that's was the causation for the smaller lot sizes. Those are directly related from, that would have been the next size up to get the 10s. So they would be adequately located or labeled as 10s. And so splitting it into 5s, it's all 5 acre zone up there. And so it goes down to that 1/128th, which would be considered by code an adequate 5, even though they're gonna come in at 4.85 or something like that. Not trying to get around something there.
And this still really doesn't have anything to do with vacating the plat.
No, this is next function, but their letter was talking about that, and I just wanted to be sure that we're not trying to do a fast thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Appreciate that clarification. And I agree that I don't believe it's actually relevant to the vacation decision.
Do you have any questions for?
I do not, thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, at this time, we'll open it up for public comment. Is there any public comment for the vacation of plat? Is there any public comment neutral of vacation of plat? Is there any public comment against the vacation of plat? Thank you. This time, we'll open it up for the commissioners to deliberate. Do you have anything to deliberate against doing this?
I do not. So I'll just quickly restate from a deliberation perspective that it's my opinion, Commissioner, that when I look at the applicable Idaho statute 50-1306A, which defines the procedure for the vacation of plats, we've confirmed with staff that subsection 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, and 10 of that statute are applicable to this file. And based on the information before us, the staff report, I believe that all of those requirements are being met. And in addition, we've confirmed that regardless of what future intentions are, because we can't be sure of that, the parcels are currently zoned rural 5, and the comp plan designation is rural residential. And so, given that, I don't think we would be creating anything any inconsistencies from what the comp plan and the zoning has already determined. So that is all I have at this time.
Okay, I'd agree. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't do this. Alex?
I wanted to remind the commissioners that for conclusion 4, finding it that it is in the public interest is something that you'll have to deliberate on, and that's a finding you'll have to make in your deliberations.
Thank you. So yeah, I'll look through the conclusions again real quick. And so, as we just stated, I do believe that we're compliant with Idaho Code 50-1306A. We have had clarification or confirmation that the granting of the vacation, there are no easements that would be vacated based on the legal description. The abandonment would not impede or deprive any property of legal access. And then consideration as to whether or not the granting of this petition for vacation would be in the public's interest, because the vacation would not prevent access, change the use and capability of the adjacent parcels, and because it would not result in creating a condition that is in contrast with the comprehensive plan designations or current zoning, in the sense of creating something that would be create more potential impacts. I don't see how it would be a detriment, and I believe that allowing the applicant to go back to the pre-platted condition is in the public's interest, since it would be protecting their private property right.
I'd agree. All right. Would you like to read the motion? Or you want me to read the
I'm
motion?
happy to read the motion. Does staff have any other thoughts or, thank you. And I am prepared to make a motion. And my intent is to include conditions of approval, as I believe that's the most helpful approach. So I move to approve this petition, file VS 0004-24, to vacate the plat known as Iron Top Ridge, recorded at instrument number 1035134, Book of Plats 21, page 96 of Bonner County Records, finding that it is in accord with Idaho Code as enumerated in the following conclusions of law and conditions of approval. Conclusion 1, this proposal is compliant with the vacation criteria and standards set forth at Idaho Code 50-1306A. Finding, this petition was submitted to the Planning Department on September 10th, 2024. This petition was noticed to the neighbors within 300 feet on January 29th, 2025, and was noticed in the newspaper on January 29th, 2025, and February 5th, 2025. There is one egress, ingress, and utility easement located within the areas that are proposed to be vacated, according to this petition. The applicant has not proposed the vacation of this easement. Local utility providers are routed as part of agency review, and none responded. Idaho Code 50-1317 does not apply to this project. The platted area is not located within any city limits. Conclusion 2. By granting of this petition for vacation, easements will not be vacated according to the legal description. Finding, the ingress, egress, and utility easement will continue to exist, recorded at instrument number 1031798 per the applicant. Conclusion 3, abandonment will not impede or deprive any property of legal access. Finding, this petition is to abandon the subject plat. This property and the remaining properties within the plat will not be left without legal access. Conclusion 4, granting this petition for vacation is in the public's interest. As previously stated, because we would not be making any substantive change, and because we are respecting private property rights, I believe it is in the public's best interest. This decision is based upon the evidence submitted up to the time of the staff report, was prepared, and testimony received at this hearing. I further move to adopt the findings of fact and direct planning staff to write written findings and conclusions to reflect this motion and transmit to all interested parties. I think we need to add as amended. The action that could be taken to obtain the vacation is to complete the conditions of approval as adopted. This action does not result in the taking of private property. The conditions, I'm not done.
You're not
Sorry.
done yet.
We have conditions of approval. The conditions of approval are,
You don't have to read.
we can just reference
You
them?
can say as
Okay.
written in the staff.
As written in the staff report, which include, are comprised of A1, A2, B1, and B2. I would like to just point out to staff that under conclusion 1, I struck the reference to 50-1317. The last sentence under the finding for conclusion 1 is correct because it states that it does not apply, but we had a conflict there. So if we just clean that up for consistency, that would be great.
I'm done with my motion, Commissioner. I'll step down from the chair and second that. Any more discussion on that?
No, sir?
Roll call vote?
Commissioner Bowden?
Yes.
Commissioner Warren?
Yes.
Well done, gentlemen.
All right, thank you, guys. It was a 3-inning game for you.
Do I need to close this? It is now 2:00 and this 4 o'clock, and this